Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome Leslie Field to the stage?
Well, good morning. I hope you all enjoyed last night. Wasn't Jack Aldrich terrific? I know my head was spinning from all the possibilities of the future, and I admit to spending some quality time on Google last night researching the history of the yield sign, but absolutely, he was correct. It is red and white. And now we have a great day planned for you. So this morning, you'll have the opportunity to experience the great content that we've put together here today in Philadelphia, so that when you leave, you will have concrete ideas and actionable steps that can power innovation back at home in your organization. We've structured the conference around 4 tracks that will challenge our current thinking about how organizations modernize today for tomorrow's work. In these sessions, we'll share successes and best practices and lessons learned among government and industry, and collectively, we'll address the most critical issues of the day. We've got 4 tracks: business innovation, embracing the digital revolution; enterprise resilience, moving to the edge; modernizing for mission success, making modernization happen; and empowering the workforce in the digital age. So here at Imagination, we want this to be a dialogue. So in addition to our sessions, we'll have interactive panels in our track theaters, point-counterpoint, TED Talk-like sessions in our center stage area, interactive human-centered design sessions in the Techno Showcase, plus 39 exhibitors at the new addition to this year's conference, the Partner Pavilion. So for the next 3 days, you will have the unparalleled opportunity to educate, lead, and collaborate. But first, we've had a team of volunteers who have worked diligently over the past year to ensure that the content of this conference will help each one of us go back to our offices ready to innovate for mission delivery. So we'd like to take the opportunity to thank the Imagination ELC 2018 Planning Committee. So please stand if you are a part of the planning team this year. Stand. Give them a warm welcome and a round of applause. So thank you all so much. Hundreds of hours of planning have gone into creating the conference that you'll experience over the next 3 days. So we'd like to thank each of you for your time, your effort, and dedication in making this conference a success. So now I would like to introduce our morning keynote speaker, Mr. Dana Deasy, who is the DoD Chief Information Officer. And as the CIO for the Department of Defense, Mr. Deasy is the primary advisor to the Secretary of Defense for matters of information management, technology, and assurance. He previously held private sector senior leadership positions, most recently as the Global Chief Information Officer of JP Morgan Chase, where he managed a budget of $9 billion and 40,000 technologists. He has more than 35 years of experience leading and delivering large-scale IT strategies and projects, to include serving as the Chief Information Officer and Group Vice President at BP. Mr. Deasy was inducted into the CIO Hall of Fame in 2012, the International Association of Outsourcing Professionals Hall of Fame in 2013, and was also named Transformational CIO in 2017. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Dana Deasy to the stage.
Well, good morning. All right, that's an enthusiastic. You guys are all ready to go. You're inspiring me already. So listen, it's great to be here in Philadelphia. Thank you so much for everyone who was involved in putting on this conference, both the American Council for Technology and the Industry Advisory Council. I had a chance to look at this agenda. What an outstanding 3 days. The speakers you have are truly inspiring. And I want to just thank everybody, both on the government side as well as the industry side, for your participation. And then most of all, Leslie, thank you for the very kind introduction this morning. So here we are in Philadelphia. This could not be a more perfect city to host the Imagination Conference. A city where the promise of a new nation was imagined by our founding fathers, and that very vision of a free nation was executed by 56 brave visionaries just a few blocks from here at what we know today is Independence Hall. Isn't it interesting to wonder what our founders would make of the many technology advances since that time? It's very much safe to say I know they would be proud of the country that has helped establish today as known as the world leaders in technology. I'm the CIO for the Department of Defense, and after 35 years in private industry, I took this role on, and I have to tell you, it's been an absolute blast since being here. What I want to do briefly this morning is just share with you the priorities we're focused on, the Department of Defense, but that is not the main theme today. I really do want to stick with the theme of imagine. So first of all, the National Defense Strategy, as you know, was created by Secretary Mattis when he came on board. It consists of 3 key parts. First of all, lethality of our warfighters and what they need. Second, continuing fostering our partnerships that cut across barriers to mission success, and that's working with our existing allies and the formation and creation of new partnerships. And then finally, enacting the reforms to maximize resources and minimizing unnecessary risk. So when I joined, I took the opportunity to sit back, look at the National Defense Strategy, and said, what would be the key tenets that we would need to do in the modernization of the Department of Defense from a technology standpoint? That led to the creation of the DoD Office CIO priorities. And as you can see on this chart, there's 4 key parts to it: cyber, cloud, AI, and C3, command, control, and communications. What I'm going to do today is ever so briefly walk you through these 4 key tenets of the strategy, and I'm going to try to explain why it is that these integrate so incredibly tight together. So the Department of Defense has a real need for an enterprise cloud where we can share, create new mission sets, handle episodic events, handle the needs of the warfighter, all the way out to the tactical edge. In doing that, we'll need a multi-cloud, multi-vendor environment that will consist of both internal as well as external commercial clouds. Second of all, we need to create a joined-up artificial intelligence capability throughout the Department of Defense. Now, this isn't to suggest that we are not doing AI. This is to suggest there's a better way, a more dramatic way where we can get the flywheel of innovation going across the department. And we believe the best way to do that is the creation of what we know as JAIC, the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center. We are literally in the process right now of physically standing up JAIC. We have the first billets coming on board, and we've actually identified the first 3 national mission initiatives that we'll be creating inside of the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center. I've always used this expression that goes something like this: you could create a great multi-cloud environment, you could create an amazing set of algorithms to help the warfighter, but if you cannot get them out to the tactical edge, which gets to the command, control, and communications, because you can't rely on it being compromised, infringed on, capacity issues, then you will not have a winning mission. So we are focused on next generation C3 to ensure that our warfighters can always get the necessary communications they need. And then finally, cyber. Everything we're doing has to have a cyber first, cyber always mindset. And across all 3 of those fronts, from cloud to Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, as well as the C3, we are fixated on ensuring that we're very mindful in how we think about putting cyber in. I'd like to call out something very important. The DoD mission is incredibly large, it's incredibly complex, but I will be the first to admit we need a lot of people to help us be successful. People in this room from industry, as well as partners from other parts of government. I'd like to call out just 2 examples of that. So I know Suzette Kent will be speaking to you on Wednesday, and I really admire her. She, to me, in my opinion, has probably one of the toughest jobs in all of Washington, and I know you'll learn a lot about what she shares with you today. And then I'd also like to call out our working relationship with GSA, specifically Emily Murphy. I know you'll be hearing in the coming weeks about some real innovative and progressive things that we're doing at the Department of Defense, where we're engaging directly at the federal level, touching across all agencies, and working very closely with the GSA. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is to move to the heart of the speech today, and that is to tell you about what I imagine. So let's stop and think about for a second. You all remember when you were young? Long time ago for some of us, I understand. And you're getting ready to get out of school. Imagine today if every young engineer, computer science, or whatever the degree is, imagine if they thought, government's an option for me. Imagine someone who's gone into private industry. We all hit that fork in our road in our careers where we needed to start to think about what would that next career look like. Imagine that that young individual who's now hit that fork in the road thinks about, what about government is my next step in my career? Or imagine the senior person who has been in industry for a number of years, and they say, there's one last role I'd love to do before retiring, and that role would be government. So that's what I'd like us all to imagine today. And I think I would challenge all of us to say that probably that's hard to imagine today, to think about every young kid putting government up as a consideration, the person who's been into their career for some time, now taking a change in their career path into government, or somebody who's purposely designed their career to make sure at some point they can step into a government role. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to use my own career today to show you why that likelihood of me touching government was extremely slim, and a bunch of unique stars that lined up allowed that to occur for me. So let's start by looking back at when I graduated. So I entered college back in the early 1980s at the University of Southern California. The global threats in technology, to say the least, were very, very different than they are today. Ronald Reagan was our president. We were in the waning years of the Cold War. Bruce Springsteen was on the radio, and IBM was on the verge of releasing an IBM personal computer. Now, can any of you imagine a day without the personal computer? How many were in the era pre-personal computer? Okay. Well, I know how old all of you are. So, what happens to me? The requirement at my university was you need to take a basic programming course. So I take this basic programming course, and I thought I was the coolest kid because while taking that course, I had a chance to take one of these home to my dorm. Teletypewriter, 300-baud acoustic coupler system. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, it's pretty cool if some of you actually remember this device. And I'm not talking about seeing it inside a museum someplace. So that's what I worked with. I took that home. I told my roommate at the time, I said, these are going to be in everybody's home someday. And I said, I know what I want to do. I want to go sell these things. So I got fixated on a career that was going to take me out. I was going to graduate, and I was going to go work for an IBM, a Burroughs, a DEC. Of course, some of these companies aren't even around anymore. HP, because that's what I saw to be the future. There was one slight problem with my career at that time. I didn't have an engineering background. I graduated as a business major. So, talked to the counselors at the university and said, you're going to need to go find a place that will take you on board and teach you technology. One interesting point, no one ever suggested to me that that place could be government. Everybody suggested to me a number of avenues in the private industry. So my first pivotal point, government never came up. You have to remember, I wasn't raised by a military family. I had never worked with people that served federal government. I didn't even know military families growing up in Southern California. So I entered my first job, Rockwell International. Coolest job in the world, helping to build and launch space shuttles and return men and women safely from their missions in outer space. It was an exciting time to be in the space shuttle program. This is, remember, back in the 1980s. Columbia Maiden had their first flight. There was endless opportunities at that time to work with some of the brightest minds. So I spent 14 years at Rockwell in this program, leading myself all the way up to be the head of technology. I was forever grateful for this opportunity. And interestingly enough, I actually intersected with government. But during those 14 years, actually no one ever approached me inside of government and said, you know, would you ever consider coming over and working on the government side? So there was a chance for an intervention point in my career, but it actually did not touch me. Rockwell did open many doors for me, and I remember a key mentor, an individual by the name of Stan Hull that I admired greatly in my career, came up to me one day and said, if you don't leave now, aerospace, you're going to have this thing labeled on your forehead for the rest of your life, says you're an aerospace employee. He never suggested that that next career could be outside of aerospace and into government. Now remember what's happening during those 14 years. The personal computer came online. Client server came online. World Wide Web came online. And yes, the first brick mobile device came online. And I know I feel like I'm taking you through a path of memory lane for many of you today. But the point I'm trying to make in all this was a lot of intersection opportunities, but they never crossed paths with me. So I leave, I take the opportunity to move on, and I end up going into the automotive industry here on the locomotive side at General Motors. But I didn't stick in the automotive industry just once. I came back and did it again in my career. And then from there, I knew I needed some international experience. Once again, I'm at a critical pivot point in my career. I'm out talking to a lot of people about what would be next for me. And everybody said, go international. No one said, go government. So I go work for Siemens in Germany for the next 6 years, and I have a chance to grow a great deal of international experience. And then from there, I moved to London for 6 years to be the global CIO at BP. And then, as was pointed out in the opening remarks this morning, most recently, the CIO at JP Morgan Chase. So after 36 years, I said I'd had enough of being a CIO. During those 36 years, 22 of those years as a CIO. And as those here in the room, CIO roles are tough roles. So I decide it's time to retire. So I retire, and here again, as I thought about leaving JP Morgan, there were a couple key events that took place. And I did have my first intersection with government in a new way. Now, I don't believe Tony Scott is amongst us this morning here, but Tony has been greatly involved in this conference. But if he was here, I would embarrass him and tell him to stand up. Because Tony was one of those interventions that came along, and he's actually partially responsible why I'm standing up here today. So I got a call from him 2 years into my role at JP Morgan. And he said, would you mind hosting about 14 or 15 CIOs from government agencies at JP Morgan for a day and share with best practices? So we brought the people in, met with them. 2 years later, same thing occurred. This time it was from Terry Halverson's world, said, would you mind hosting some CIOs? And I remember some very important things from those 2 days. One was, it gave me a chance to truly see the commitment and passion of CIOs in government. It gave me a chance to learn about the complexity and the size and the scale of the problem sets they were trying to solve for. And I remember going home and talking to my wife on both those occasions. And I said, boy, I wish there was some way that I could help them. So here I am. I'm retired. I'm sitting up in our home in North Carolina. That's my view I'm looking at one morning when I get a call. I get a call, and I'm said, would you mind talking to this person? Deputy Secretary, Department of Defense, Patrick Shanahan. He says, would you mind coming to Washington, D.C. and talking to this person, Secretary Mattis? And between those two, they convinced me to come here. So I sucked at retirement, obviously. Got 6 months into it, and here I am today. Now, when I started my job at the Pentagon, I started asking a lot of questions about how is it people think about coming into government? How do they think about those careers? Where do they go? Where are those intervention points? What are the things that government are doing? And then I read a recent article that some of you might have also read that came out of NextGov. And it said there's 84,000 tech specialists that make up government today. And only 3% of tech specialists are under 30 years old. Think about that number. The baby boomers are retiring, jobs are not getting replaced fast enough, and bringing it closer to home, less than 1% of Americans serve in the military today. That's down since World War II. Only 15% of young adults have had a parent that's served. The number has decreased since 1995, when 40% of young adults had a parent serve. 80% of those currently in service have had at least one parent serve. Service seems to be passed down from generation to generation. Now, if you're from another agency, you can look into your own backyard, and I would probably argue that you'd have some very common trends. If you happen to have had a parent that maybe worked in government, or you happen to have had somebody that worked on the private sector side that faced off to government, there was a possibility that your career might intersect and take you into government. So I'm not here to suggest that every young person should go into government service, but I am here to suggest that there does need to be an intervention. And of course, I'd like to selfishly say, I'd like to get the best of them to come to the Department of Defense first. So how is it we go about inspiring young minds? If you think about it for a second, private industry is going to offer something that will always be challenging for us, and we call that basic compensation. So we're not going to win the hearts and minds when it comes to one's wallet. However, we can win the hearts and minds on the complexity, the challenges, the very calling. I mean, every day when I walk into the Department of Defense, all you have to do is walk down the hallway and look at the young men and women serving our nation. Talk to them for a minute, hear about the challenges they're facing, and you have this swell of responsibility that comes up inside you saying, I have to do everything it takes to help them be successful. How do we introduce those moments for young people to have that same light bulb click on? I'll just give you one small example of this. So last summer, we had a chance to host a bunch of young, very bright college students who had won a major cyber award. They were from the University of Virginia. These students came to DC, and we were able to have them tour various agencies that day. They went to the NSA, they went to Secret Service, they went to the CIA, and they even visited senators up on Capitol Hill. The staff organized a cyber career specific day at the Pentagon. The students were briefed about job opportunities in cyber and IT inside the Department of Defense. It was a very smart, calculated day how we ran these students through the DoD. At the end of the day, myself and my deputy met with them, and we took the opportunity to do real-time recruiting. We took the opportunity to walk them through a day in the life of a cyber specialist, an IT specialist, and what it meant to come and work on the missions. They were engaged, these kids were phenomenally inspiring, and most importantly, by the end of the day, they were asking us how is it they could get started in a career inside of government. So here they are. This was the group that won. We took a picture at the end of that day, and I have to tell you, I don't know who was more inspired, them about the opportunity to come and work inside the Department of Defense, or me about the prospects that I might have landed a few young, very bright, capable people. Students learn a lot about Silicon Valley. They learn a lot about startups, but I would suggest they don't get a chance to learn a lot about government or military service. Most specifically, IT careers in government and military service. So how do we get those light bulbs to go on? What needs to change? What is it we need to do, even inside the DoD, to recruit differently? If we're going to want to gain the brightest minds, remember in that story and example I served you, at that very young age, they were not talking to me about salaries and paychecks. They wanted to know deeply around the problem set, the technology we were using, how they could help, what was it they would have an opportunity to do, and what missions they would serve on. So I challenge all of us today, whether you're here from another government agency or you're here as a partner, what are the interventions that all of you need to make to specifically get light bulbs to go on? Young people, people at midpoint in their careers, or maybe even people at the latter part of their careers. If you think about it, Silicon Valley and private industry, and I can tell you, I did this. We started focusing on kids when they were still in college. The attitude was no different than what you did if you were looking to recruit a kid to come to a school to play football for you. You needed to start paying attention to their career very early on, coaching and mentoring. That's something we could be doing today. We need to think outside the box. Now, in a minute here, I'm going to show you a video. And this is a video that was just released and put up on the website of the Department of Defense. And I guarantee you about 80% of you in this room are not going to connect with this video. This video was not designed for you folks. This video was designed for a very different generation. This video was made by a young individual, an MC2. He animated this video. He did the voice. This was not done by outside professional service company. And what I want you to think about in this video is not so much about whether this video connects for you or not, but to think about at least we're trying to do something to try to get engagement to occur in a much different way. So why don't you go ahead and play the video.
While there have been plenty of movies about our armed forces, most tend to exaggerate what our military does day in and day out. Here's the real scoop about the Department of Defense and how our military keeps you safe. There are 5 separate branches in the military made up of more than 2 million men and women. The Army, the largest of the 5, with as many people as the entire population of Atlanta. Their job is to fight and win our nation's wars. To do this, they use people, tanks, helicopters, and vehicles to fight and defeat bad guys on land. Then there's the Navy. It's all about the water. They work on it, above it, and below it. They keep the seas free and safe. Free so things like food, electronics, and cars can travel to and from other countries. Safe so the enemy can't use the sea to do us harm here at home. The Marine Corps, a bad guy's worst nightmare. Part of the Department of the Navy, Marines come from sea and air to fight adversaries on land, and they are very, very good at it. As they like to say, no better friend and no worse enemy than a United States Marine. The Air Force. Their job is to fly, fight, and win in the air, space, and cyberspace. They keep us safe here at home by making sure no one surprises us, and they play an important role in fighting bad guys all around the world. The Coast Guard. A drug dealer's worst enemy and a boater's best friend. It's the Coast Guard that usually catches bad guys trying to smuggle things in or out of the country. Along with the Navy, they use their boats, planes, and helicopters to keep the bad guys from using the sea for illegal purposes. Our troops are deployed around the world at all times so you can work prosperously and sleep peacefully. And of course, we don't fight bad guys alone. We get help from our partners and allies all around the globe. Our military is doing amazing work with unbelievable jobs available to those who serve, from air traffic controllers to meteorologists to gourmet chefs and even rocket scientists. Dive into the site to learn more.
Okay. Now, what I'm trying to do is to find that MC2 and say, could you just change the very end of that video and put a technologist up there in that group? So what's the reality? Department of Defense has seen a 30% increase on its website since that video's come out. That video alone has had 200,000 clicks on it. If you go to defense.gov, you'll see a change. There's 3 focus areas: user experience, utilizing latest web technology, and there's improved content. So we are trying to think out of the box and in new, innovative ways. The idea is, I'd like to think this is a step in the right direction. There's a lot of different ways we can go after it. This is just one very important way. I'd really like, back to the theme today, to imagine that all young students leaving college, going in the workforce, would love to come and work for the Department of Defense. I'd love them to think about this as a calling, as a place where they'd like to get grounded as they start launching their career. And for them to think about the mission. Because I will tell you, and I'm sure I can speak for every agency in the room today, you do become captivated by the mission you're working on. I'm not trying to disparage careers in private industry. You're talking to someone who did that for their entire career. I am simply trying to say, how do we create a playing field that has young people, mid-career people, and people at the end of their career who want to think about an alternative to private industry? Remember what I said earlier, this is a challenge for all of us. Hopefully today, all I've done is spark some interest in this topic with all of you. Hopefully you'll talk about this during your breaks. And more importantly, hopefully all of you who are here from industry will grab hold of somebody now and will start to encourage them to consider about a role in government. So Benjamin Franklin was a key figure, not only here and in Philly, but he also made a lasting impression around the world. He wore many hats throughout his distinguished career: diplomat, author, political theorist, scientist, statesman, inventor. He understood knowledge was key to the long-term success in America. And he wrote, "An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest." And what a great place to be talking about this today in Philadelphia. I'd like to end by saying there's roles that organizations are also playing. Forums such as ACT and IAC are key in setting government up for future success. It's an absolute great to see that the American Council for Technology and the Industry Advisory Council have made such a great, strong partnership together. If we are to improve the mission performance and enhance delivery of services to our citizens, we must work together on a multitude of problems. I would argue this one's got to be close to the top of the list. In addition to providing a program for collaboration across government and industry, ACT and IAC has 4 professional development programs servicing everyone from entry-level workers to those at senior management. I encourage everyone to take part in these excellent and professional development programs. So once again, I challenge all of you here today to think about the future of the workforce in government. And of course, I'd like you to specifically think about the future of technologists inside the DoD. I feel very, very fortunate, on a very personal note, to have gotten that call back in February. I'll tell you, I have come to respect the Department of Defense, the mission of the men and the women that wear the uniform every day. Our biggest challenges inside the DoD, yes, they're complex. They are mind-boggling. And we need to recruit people who are going to work on the complex and the mind-boggling. So once again, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk about what I imagine. Have a great day.
Dana, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dana, it's wonderful to have you come into government, to serve in the Department of Defense, and to speak about your own career arc and what it's meant for you to even already serve in government. I too came in mid-career, and so I have a similar journey. And I've served 8 years in government, and it was the best professional decision I ever made in my life. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
So good morning, everybody. Again, I'm Richard Spires. I'm the IAC chair. Last night, we recognized some of our sponsors, and we'd like to take this time to thank more sponsors for Imagination ELC 2018. Again, without our sponsors, we could not hold this event. So first, I'd like to recognize the ELC Gold sponsors. Accenture, Comcast Business, Deloitte, Dev Technology Group, Evolver, Genesis, Information System Asset Management, KSM Consulting, Sharp Solutions, Inc., Symantec. Next, I would like to recognize our silver sponsors, Aptio, Box, Equinix Governance Solutions, GovPlace, IBM, Leapfrog, NTT Data, Red Horse, SAP, Saudi Solutions Incorporated, TerraThink, TrustWave. And I'd also like to point out, and I'm sure you've seen it next door, but we really have changed the LC this year. So we have two brand new additions to the conference, the Techno Showcase and the Partner Pavilion. And they're going to give you a chance to interact with other sponsors over in those areas. And I would really urge you, as part of this conference, take an hour or so and wonder about the Techno Showcase, wonder about the Partner Pavilion. You're going to see some amazing new technologies, amazing new capabilities that really do portend the future for government. Okay? So now at this time, I'd like to ask Renee Wynn, the ACT President, Paul Strasser, the IACT Executive Vice Chair, and Maria Rowe, the ACT Vice President, to join me on stage. So good morning.
Good morning.
So we mentioned last night that earlier in the year, the ACT-I Awards Review Committee recommended realigning our awards to complement our strategic focus on education, leadership, and collaboration. The ACT-I Collaboration Award was born of that recommendation.
This prestigious award is presented to the following 5 teams from government and/or industry who have made an exceptional difference in the federal community through collaboration, while driving new methods and approaches and creating a more effective, innovative, and responsive government. Maria and Paul will be announcing the award winners.
Thank you. I am pleased to introduce the first of the 5 winning teams. We ask everyone that was able to join us today, you'll see your name on the slide behind me, to come to the stage as soon as your team is identified and while your names are being called. Congratulations to the ACT-IAC Government Innovation Community Advisors team. Alexis Bonner, USAID. Ariane Miller, OPM. Nagesh Rao, SBA. And Jim Thompson, State Department.
Congratulations.
The ACT-IAC Government Innovation Community Advisors serves as government advisors to the ACT-IAC Institute for Innovation, focusing on the Government Innovation Community Building Initiative. As a team and separately, each team member personifies the spirit of collaboration. Although they are called advisors, they are much more. The title understates the active and committed collaboration they exhibit as a team and as individuals. Each of the advisors are recognized innovators in their own right. Their missions are crucial to advancing innovation in their sphere. They execute their missions through engagement and collaboration with diverse communities, including across government and agencies, industry, academia, and nonprofits. Together, the ACT-IAC Government Innovation Community Advisors with the ACT-IAC Institute for Innovation have been building a network of networks made up of their communities and stakeholders, along with those of ACT-IAC. Congratulations to each of you for the exceptional work you do.
I'm proud to recognize the second ACT-IAC Collaboration Award team of the morning. Please join me in congratulating the ACT-IAC IT Management and Modernization Community of Interest Leadership Team. For those that were able to be here today, please join me on stage. Vera Ashworth from CGI, Melvin Brown from the Department of Homeland Security, Stu Hammer from Perspecta, Colleen Law from SIE Consulting, Eric Stogowski from Ernst & Young, and Daniel York from the General Services Administration.
Yeah, you want to do it? Yep. Got it. And then then it's Colleen.
Third.
Stu is third.
Right there.
Yep.
Hey,
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Super.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
The IT Management and Modernization Leadership Team has driven strategic leadership activities since its inception in 2016. Those activities provide important and respected input to the federal community. This team leads a group of ACT-IAC volunteers that forwards the ACT-IAC mission in a collaborative, innovative, and responsive way. They advise and equip government with best practices and lessons learned and focus on strengthening IT management and implementation and accelerating legacy IT modernization. The IT Management and Modernization COI and the leadership team have successfully executed multiple strategic projects and activities and are at the center of much of the ACT-IAC CAP goal dialogues. The IT leaders take the ACT-IAC spirit seriously to solve critical problems and drive results. They energize our volunteers, our agency sponsors, and the ACT-IAC leadership team. I am happy to present this well-deserved award. Congratulations to each of you.
I have the privilege of recognizing another impressive team. Please join me in congratulating the Buy Smarter team members at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I know we have a couple of the team representatives with us today, so please join me on stage as I read the team member names. Ginny Aristorianos, HHS, Jose Arrieta, HHS, Dean Brent, Nationwide IT Services, Cicely Chung, National IT Services, Sean Folan, The Clearing, John Gentile, HHS, Lisa Harper, Data Federal, Oki Meck, HHS, Clarence Randall, HHS, Lori Rudderman, HHS, Christos Stiatis, HHS, Margot Thomas, HHS, Ken Thompson, Nationwide IT Services, and Stephen Woodring, The Clearing. The Buy Smarter initiative is part of HHS's broader strategic effort, Reimagine HHS. The Buy Smarter team combined their individual skills and expertise to collaborate and to bring more efficiency and cost savings to its extensive family of agencies. They engage agency stakeholder groups, both internal to HHS and external, to forge the solution that best serves the mission. Buy Smarter is a transformative, data-driven initiative designed to leverage the collective purchasing power of HHS to secure lower prices, achieve operational efficiencies, and generate cost savings on goods and services. They went above and beyond to propel the initiative from a novel idea to a complete and well-functioning concept that will soon go into implementation. Join me congratulating the HHS Buy Smarter team. Congratulations.
How are you,
All right,
sweetheart?
good.
Now it's time to honor the ACT-IAC Emerging Technologies COI Blockchain Playbook Team. Please join me on stage to accept your awards. Sandy Barsky from the General Services Administration, Fred DeVos from Prometheus Computing, Venkat Kudamudi from CGI, Sherry Sokol from the Defense Information Systems Agency, and Star Venamali from Sapient.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Good job.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
The ACT-IAC Emerging Technologies Blockchain Playbook was designed to support the federal government in its understanding and application of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. The playbook proposes a process and 5 distinct phases, each phase containing a set of key activities organized in functional areas that go beyond just the technical aspects of blockchain, but also include management, people, process, and acquisition areas. The exceptional Blockchain Playbook team members have been members of the Emerging Technologies Blockchain Working Group since its inception, contributing collaboratively to the development of the Blockchain Primer as well as the Blockchain Playbook. This team has been instrumental in pushing forward the overall development, taking on section lead roles, recruiting new members, and helping with the dissemination of the work product during various blockchain forums. Please join me in thanking this exceptional team for their good work and congratulating each on receiving the ACT-IAC Collaboration Award.
Thank you.
And now, last but certainly not least, please join me in congratulating the Office of Personnel Management HR Line of Business team. Will those that were able to join us please come to the stage to accept your awards? Marcel Gemio, OPM, Anita Murray, OPM, and Jeffrey Polis, OPM. The OPM HR Line of Business team was selected to receive the ACT-IAC Collaboration Award for their exceptional innovative work in developing the first ever government-wide human capital data standards. These data standards, comprising 1,500 data elements, were developed in collaboration with subject matter experts in the federal human capital community, including OPM policy and operations offices, federal agencies, shared service providers, and other industry and government partners. Developing these standards is the first step in achieving the seamless exchange of human capital employee record data between OPM, federal agencies, and SSPs. For their innovation, collaboration, extraordinary achievement, and impact, we congratulate the OPM HR Line of Business team.
So that concludes our presentation of the 2018 ACT-IAC Collaboration Awards. So let's give one more round of applause for all the winners.
Knock 'em dead.
And congratulations to all the winners again. Last night and this morning, we heard about what the future may hold in light of today's emerging technologies like artificial intelligence. 50 years ago, the nation and the world took in a view of the future that forecast a society where AI played a key role, captured in the release of the landmark film 2001: A Space Odyssey. Let's take a look.
Dave, do you mind if I ask you a personal question?
No, not at all.
I've wondered whether you might be having some second thoughts about the mission.
How do you mean?
Rumors about something being dug up on the moon. I never gave these stories much credence, but particularly in view of some of the other things that have happened, I find them difficult to put out of my mind.
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
As a special plenary session for Imagination ELC 2018, we are honored to be joined by the leading actor from the film, Keir Dullea, for a discussion about how a vision of the future can change how we think about the world. Keir? Keir?
Dave. Dave.
He never listened to me.
Keir, thank you so much for joining us at ELC Imagination. Keir, as a world-renowned actor for over 50 years, you know firsthand how the power of imagination can spark creativity and even change the world. Certainly, 2001: A Space Odyssey met those tests and continues to pass the test of time. Very relevant to our discussion today, the film in many ways introduced artificial intelligence to popular culture. What was the view at the time of the cast and director Stanley Kubrick about how computers might impact society?
Well, let me set the scene. For me, this actor, that's all I'd done all my life at that point. I'd been doing it for about 20 years. And suddenly, out of the blue, I'm offered this film. Now, it turns out I had been a real science fiction fan when I was like 13, 14, 15. I've subscribed to all the science fiction magazines at the period, Galaxy, Astounding Science Fiction. Every year they'd come out with the best science fiction of whatever year it was, and my mother would give me a copy of that. And when I was sent the script, and I promise you this was out of the blue, I had no idea that I was being considered for this film, something about the script was vaguely familiar. And then I remembered I had read a short story which was published in 1949 in a British science fiction magazine called The Sentinel by Arthur C. Clarke. And all it dealt with was the finding of a monolith on the surface of the moon. And the question asked by the short story was, what passing intelligence had left this monolith a million years before? What was the signal they were now sending? Because when they uncovered it, it sent a signal somewhere. Was it to the passing alien presence that passed by that million of years before and looked down on those primitive creatures of cavemen and wanted to know when they became intelligent enough to reach the moon, then they wanted to know about them. So that was the story. So I arrived with this background. Now, Stanley and Arthur C. Clarke were extraordinary visionaries of their time. And I knew that, and I accepted all the things that were in the script and the things that we were going to present. But I could never have dreamed. I mean, AI, artificial intelligence, was in its infancy then. And the key to the fact that this, when you see it 50 years later, that it was made 50 years ago, is that when I go in to disconnect HAL, the brain room is huge, because in those days, the brain room, which would be now in a laptop, was huge. So that red room that I enter is, so I was in the presence of two extraordinary gentlemen who looked far more into the future than I could ever have guessed, but I trusted them. I realized that I was dealing with two geniuses.
That's great. Thanks, Keir. So the film portrayed many of the positive ways that computers can help humans live better lives. And at the same time, as we saw from the brief film clips right here a few minutes ago, the film also showed the risks that can arise when computers replace human decision-making rather than augment humans. Do you think the film presented this balance effectively? How have viewers of the film talked about this balance?
Well, people have talked about, and they're still talking about, the fact that there may be some danger with very intelligent computers. And, you know, we're not that far away from creating a HAL. We haven't quite gotten there, but the power that artificial intelligence suggests for the future is something to be cautious about. And I think that's shown in 2001, A Space Odyssey. I'd just like to give an example of the power of AI that I just read in an article in Atlantic Magazine. Apparently, there was a program that was developed in 2016 where the knowledge of chess masters throughout centuries was fed into this program. And this program actually beat the top chess champion of the world, a Russian chess master, beat him. The next year, another program called Fox 8, I can't remember the full title. This program had no information fed into it from the history of chess, not even opening moves. Nothing was programmed from the history of chess into this program, except for the rules. That's all it knew, and it played with itself. It played chess with itself. Guess what? It played 100 games against the first program that had beat the chess master. Of those 100 games, it won 21 games and tied all the rest. The other program didn't win one. Guess how long it took to program this new program?
Days?
4 hours.
Wow.
4 hours. So that kind of, and I think in the past, wealth was recognized in the Middle Ages by how much land you had. In the 19th and 20th century, it's the industry of the world that represents the wealth of economies. But I think the new future is data. That is going to be the most powerful representation of wealth. And that means a lot of manipulation can be done of human beings. So we have to be careful of that, I think.
Certainly the film industry is grappling with this as well. And you've spent a lot of this year traveling around the world speaking about the 50th anniversary of this film. What have you learned about the film's long-term impact? And what has surprised you in your travels?
The interesting thing is, the most common question that I'm asked is, what is the ultimate meaning of the film? And I like to kind of quote Stanley, who at some point said, how do you explain in words Beethoven's Fifth Symphony? You can't. Any more than somebody who listens to the Blue Danube. If you've never seen this film, you'll probably think of Vienna or a river. But if you have seen this film, chances are you'll think of space. Which one of those two reactions is correct? Both are correct. And what Stanley said was that 2001: A Space Odyssey is a visual symphony. And I think the fact that that we're talking about this film 50 years later with this large group of people who are obviously interested in it, and the world seems to be interested in it, says a lot, is because this film will hold so much interpretation. It's unlimited. He didn't over-explain things. And the other thing, of course, when we actually made the film, there was no such thing as computer-generated special effects. Everything you see in this film was photographed directly. And I'll give a perfect illustration of this. Today, we would use a green screen, and we wouldn't have to endanger stuntmen the way we had to in the old days. In the scene where I am blown into the emergency airlock, it looks like I'm weightless, blown toward you and away, and I bounce around a little bit in there. How is that done? They had to use me. They couldn't use a stuntman because I'd forgotten my helmet. So it was a set probably a little higher than this ceiling. The camera was on the floor. There was a little circle cut out in the ceiling, which was where the pod was against the opening where I was blown in from. a platform parallel with a circus roustabout, and I was standing next to him out of camera range. He had measured the drop twice. They had a rope that length that was woven into a wire that was attached to the rear of my costume. On action, when Stanley said action, I dove headfirst, free fall, toward the lens, and that length of rope that he had measured stopped me inches in front of the lens. At that moment, he's waiting for the first knot with very heavy gloved hands. When the knot reaches his hands, he jumps off, and I go hurtling back to the ceiling. It was a block and tackle effect. Then when he hit the ground, he waited for the next knot. And at that point, when the knot came, he let go again, and I went hurtling back to the camera. And so they don't have to do that anymore. And thank God we did that in one take.
Well, we're all happy that you survived that take.
You.
Thank you, Keir. So speaking of technology then, and now, this is a conference, as you've heard this morning and last evening, of government IT leaders and industry stakeholders. And AI is really enabling governments around the world to improve effectiveness and service for their people. At the same time, government and industry are assessing how best to ensure that the workforce has the skills to use AI and transition to the new kinds of work that AI enables. Now, you're a veteran of the film industry. You've seen these technology changes occur. Do you think there are lessons in terms of how the media industry has adopted technology that government might learn from?
Well, you've just sort of said it. I think the power that AI gives the government is immense. The potential for great good is there, but the potential for a misuse of this information is also there. And put in the hands of a fascistic government, it poses great danger, I think.
Cautionary tale. So, Keir, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I have one last question.
Sure.
You recently shared with me that a few months ago, you heard about a dialogue where Mark Zuckerberg spoke about a positive future for computers in the world. And Elon Musk talked about a cautionary future. Where do you come out in that debate?
I am not on Facebook, but I drive a Tesla. That's the best answer I can give you.
There you go.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Keir. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Imagine Nation Vice Chairs Darren Ash and Susan Becker.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Keir. It's amazing to think 50 years ago we were introduced to how artificial intelligence would change our world, and here we are now in 2018, and it's real. We hope that you downloaded the mobile event app last night. We'll be using the mobile event app throughout the conference to post updates and notifications, as well as conduct surveys in conference sessions and the plenaries. The app also has the full agenda for the conference, speaker information, maps, everything you will need to navigate the conference. You've probably also noticed that your lanyard badge includes an easy-to-use pocket agenda if you don't have access to the app. One of the most exciting things about this year's conference is that we've been able to create a 360-degree experiential learning and collaboration environment where you'll be able to find all of the track session rooms, plus center stage, the partner pavilion exhibits, and the Techno Showcase all in one space in the room right next door to us. Let's take a look at the layout on the screen. The track theaters are in the four corners of the room, with the Imaginarium track theater in the back left. The Imaginarium offers a unique session experience designed to maximize collaboration and interaction. The center stage is on the back wall with short TED Talk-like presentations happening throughout the day. The Techno Showcase is as you enter through the main doors and will feature small group collaboration sessions in the morning and in the afternoon, hosted by government leaders. The Partner Pavilion is the first ever for ACT-IAC's Leadership Conference, directly to the left as you enter through the main doors. There you'll find 39 companies and government agencies showcasing their unique solutions and services.
And we have an incredible lineup of sessions for you to choose from this morning. The Partner Pavilion will be open right after this plenary session ends until we come back here for lunch at noon. So please make time to visit them. On center stage, you can choose from 3 sessions back to back, starting at 10:15 this morning. One showcasing IoT in action by the Office of Aviation Services, Department of Interior. Another from USCIS discussing the use of intelligent personal assistance. And last, a compelling face-off discussing the pros and cons of requiring cyber insurance. In our track theaters, starting at 10:30, you can choose between 4 75-minute sessions. Track Theater 1 offers the first session from our Business Innovation track, focused on how technological innovation is driving improved mission value. Under the Modernizing for Mission Success track, we offer 2 sessions. Track Theater 2 will focus on how FITARA is propelling the mission forward. And in Track Theater 3, we'll discuss how we're driving cross-fed efficiency through the President's management agenda. Our Empowering the Workforce in the Digital Age track offers its first session in Track Theater 4, the Imaginarium. Remember, this is the location of our collaborative interactive sessions for those of you who prefer to roll up your sleeves and get to work. This interactive session will focus on how we align the workforce to IT modernization goals and priorities. The Techno Showcase hubs, easily identified by the yellow flags, offer 4 unique interactive sessions. In the Customer Experience Hub, the Department of Veterans Affairs will lead a discussion on how to prepare for the CX journey. In the Cybersecurity Hub, Department of Education will focus on driving down cyber risks. And in the Emerging Technology Hub, TSA will lead a session on data and AI. Your at-a-glance program identifies NASA as the lead, but thanks to Hurricane Michael, John Sprague, who is the leader of the Emerging Technologies and Techno, is not with us. He had to head down to Florida to take care of his family with generators and batteries, so we're sorry he is not here. In the Modernization Hub, my partner Darren here will talk about gaining constituent agreement on buildingfarmers.gov. So in every hub, participants will engage in interactive sessions using human-centered design methodology to explore potential solutions and strategies. Another great opportunity for our colleagues who like to roll up their sleeves. Wow, that's a lot. After the morning sessions, we'll meet back here at noon for lunch. So enjoy the morning. Please go out and visit the Partner Pavilion and say hello to our sponsors, because without them, we wouldn't be here. Thank you very much.